Okay. Morning, afternoon, evening. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi, Jerry. I see Bev. Hey, Bev Aaron.
Hello.
And Bev Stahl.
Hi.
Bev Stahl, second time I get to see you today, which is very nice.
Nice. Yes.
Carrie Hurd, second time I get to see you today. That's nice. Did a good job with all that. And Bev Aaron, first time I'm seeing you today. Oh, good. Bev, your microphone working? It is. Okay. All right. Kyle.
I just turned it off.
Good. Hi, Kyle.
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And I see Roz.
Hello.
Ken joining your bride. Like to see it. Good to see you guys. Charlie's here. And Stacy, you were first on my screen.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Hello.
How are you?
Oh, how are you?
I'm well. I'm gonna eat. I'm sorry.
You should. You should. You've had a long day. Just yeah, I know. Lindemann, did you already eat? Bruce, Ellen, did you already have dinner?
Yes, we did. We did.
What was dinner?
Leftovers. It's
Okay.
great.
Good leftovers?
Chinese food. Mongolian beef.
Oh, that sounds delicious. That sounds delicious. All right, good. We're gonna get started in a moment. I guess we are starting. Let's see. John Laszlo. Okay, we'll let these folks in and we're gonna get started. Okay, so we have John and Eileen, and whose iPhone is this? That is Bob and Denise. All right, cool. Hi guys. Do you know how to change your iPhone name? Let's see. I'll do it for you. And Denise. Okay, cool. All right.
Eric, did you change it for us? Let's see.
I did. Yep, I changed it
Okay.
for you.
Thank you.
And Eileen and Philip are here. That's great. All right, wonderful. All right, I think this is our crew tonight. So a little bit smaller than it's been, and that is totally fine. A couple housekeeping things. First, for those who might have wanted to come to the in-person session tomorrow and really get a double dose, remember, we're not meeting in person tomorrow. We are heading down to the Capitol building to lobby to get the definition of anti-Semitism put into law. So you've all been, the congregation was sent an email about that, how to do it, where to meet. And I'm really hoping that if you are available, that you go down. There is a shot. It's actually going to be voted on tomorrow, and if not, likely on Thursday. And what we can do is a big deal. Sunday at let's see, I think Sister Humantaschen is something like 1 o'clock. Baking Humantaschen. Does that sound right? And then at 4 o'clock, we have our Georgia Fighting Anti-Semitism program with ADL here in reaction to the anti-Semitic flyers that were put out a couple weeks ago. And there will be lots of people there, but we need you, and we need your non-Jewish friends as well. Okay, that's really important to be at. One more really important piece of housekeeping. We this year are having a scholar in residence for the first time in many years. And we're having Rabbi Eli Hersher from Los Angeles come in. He's going to be here Thursday, March 30th, Thursday night, Friday, March 31st, and Saturday morning, April 1st. So that's a Thursday night program, a Friday sermon, and then an extended Hever Torah on Saturday. Rabbi Hersher is a superb teacher, and overall theme is meaning of life, but focused on a couple particular things. And he really is just about as good as it gets. So no PRs come out about it yet, but I want you to know about it because you all are learners, and it'd be good to have you. And this is underwritten by Diane and Norm Cohen. So shout out to both of them from Florida. They are sponsoring our Scholar in Residence program. All right, it's a big deal. Yes, Ellen. Now you're muted. You just muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. Can I put a plug in for this Friday?
Yeah, actually, please put a plug in for this Friday.
All right, this Friday is a terrific Shabbat. We are having a guest who will do, I assume, a good part of the evening. It's Jewish Disabilities Awareness Month. And this speaker actually is someone with a disability, but she also happens to be a comedian. So it will be funny, very different, inspiring, educational, very uplifting. So please come.
I agree. And the only thing I would add is it's going to be a very short service. We're talking like 17-minute service and then probably, 35-minute comedian. So it's going to be good. It's going to be really, really good. And I hope everybody can come. And that is part of our Kolenu Shabbat, our Inclusion Awareness Shabbat. All right. So did everybody get the document that I sent earlier today, or Nyla sent earlier today?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that you got it. I hope that you had a chance to read it through. We're going to read it through together, but this is a document from 1935 written by Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, or excerpt from. And what's really cool about what we're going to do over the next hour is that we're going to be examining some very important recent Jewish history through the text of one of the luminaries of the Jewish world. Okay. And of course, it is no coincidence, that we're sharing it in this course, and his magna opus is titled The Jewish Civilization. And that also, of course, is the name of this course, The Jewish Civilization. It didn't come out of nowhere. So I'm going to share my screen. If you have your document in your printout, you can take a look at that, including the questions from the end, which we're going to be looking at together. And I will share my screen. Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to enlarge this. Okay, and now how do I get this? Okay. Bev, how is that? Is that large enough? Anybody?
It looks good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good.
All right, good. So some background, and the background's important in part because we get to take a snapshot of what the Jewish world looked like at a particular time, contrast it with the Jewish world today, and then ask some of the questions, look at the questions that Kaplan is addressing, and put it into the lens of 2023. So Mordecai Kaplan, founder of the Reconstructionist movement, has a profound influence on the development of American Jewish life. His ideas brought about Reconstructionism, the fourth branch of American Judaism. So you've got Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, and the fourth major branch of Judaism is Reconstructionism. He started it. He's the godfather. And also such innovations as the bat mitzvah. He invented the bat mitzvah, or at least he brought it to the forefront, the modern bat mitzvah. Jewish summer camp as a way of expressing Jewish education and pride. The Jewish community centers, the JCCs, all to Mordecai Kaplan, and the Chavurah. So some of you are in a Chavurah, right? Sort of the Jewish version of the fellowship group. The Chavurah movement all started with Mordecai Kaplan. So this guy had it going on, right? I mean, these are major, major things. And it's all part of his, not just brainchild, because anybody can have a good idea, but he actually brought them into into reality, right? Which shows that he's got ideas and influence. Born in 1881, Kaplan immigrated from Lithuania to the United States at the age of 9. He studied at City College of New York and Columbia University, then entered the rabbinate program of the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is the conservative seminary uptown in Manhattan. There he received his ordination in 1902. He served briefly as the rabbi of an Orthodox congregation in New York, leaving to become the dean of the newly founded Teachers Institute of the seminary. That's at JTS. After retiring in 1963, he taught at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and returned to the United States before his death at the age of 102. Kaplan's interest in the Jewish community organization began in the early years of his seminary career. In 1918, he set up the first Jewish center in New York City, hoping to bring together Jews of various backgrounds for religious as well as cultural activities. Kaplan's also credited with the idea of establishing summer camps for the education and recreation of Jewish youth. In 1922, Kaplan founded the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, which became the Jewish Reconstructionist Foundation in 1935. The Reconstructionist movement today has a rabbinic association as well as an organization of affiliated congregations. I think there's like 120 Reconstructionist congregations all around America, all originating with Kaplan. An early champion of women's rights in Judaism, Kaplan created the bat mitzvah ceremony, with his daughter, Judith, becoming the first bat mitzvah in 1922, which means, I think it was March of last year, we celebrated 100 years of bat mitzvah, 100 years of bat mitzvah. Kaplan wrote many books and articles articulating his religious philosophy. The one we're going to look at tonight is Judaism as a Civilization. All right. So I have, this is an excerpt. It's an important excerpt. I have put in red the pieces that we're going to be focusing on. Okay. I'm going to read this out loud. If you have it on if you've got it printed out or you have it on your computer, it would be good to have this so you can be jotting things down as we go. Keep in mind, this was published in 1935, so the language feels like 1935. All right. The Jew's religion is but one element in his life that is challenged by the present environment. It's a mistake, therefore, to conceive the task of conserving Jewish life as essentially a task of saving the Jew's religion. When a person is about to abandon a house for fear that it might fall about his ears at any moment, it's folly to try to convince him that he ought to remain in it because of the beautiful frescoes on its walls. Jewish life is becoming uninhabitable because it is in danger of collapse. The problem is how to make it habitable. To drop the metaphor and return to the more abstract method of viewing the problem of Judaism, the task now before the Jew is to save the otherness of Jewish life. The element of unlikeness will take care of itself. Put more specifically, this means that apart from the life which, as a citizen, the Jew shares with the non-Jews, his life should consist of certain social relationships to maintain, cultural interests to foster, activities to engage in, organizations to belong to, amenities to conform to, moral and social standards to live up to as a Jew. All this constitutes the element of otherness. Judaism as otherness is thus something far more comprehensive than Jewish religion. It includes that nexus of history, literature, language, social organization, folk sanctions, standards of conduct, social and spiritual ideals, and aesthetic values, which in their totality form a civilization. What endangers that civilization is not only the preoccupation with the civilizations of their peoples, but also the irrelevance, remoteness, and vacuity of Jewish life. There is little at present in Jewish life that offers a field for self-expression to the average man and woman who is not engaged either as a rabbi, educator, or social worker. If one does not have a taste for praying 3 times a day and studying the Bible and rabbinic writings, there is nothing in any of the current versions of Judaism to hold one's interest as a Jew. Activities that might hold one's interest and through which one might express oneself as a Jew have not been recognized as part of Jewish life because there has been found no concept which might integrate them into it. Lacking that integration, they're bound to remain sterile, and Jewish life is apt to become an empty shell. The categories under which it has been customary to subsume Judaism have proved inadequate. It can no longer be confined within the terms of revealed religion or ethical monotheism. Both its own nature and the temple of the time preclude its being classified with either the one or the other. We must therefore find for it a category which will do justice to the whole of it. Those who try to interpret Judaism to the outside world are in the habit of describing it in terms which they imagine would justify its existence in the opinion of their audience. This is why Philo and Josephus, call them the Year Zero, found it necessary to represent Judaism to the Gentiles of their day as a philosophy. And this is why modern Jewish apologists deem it necessary to represent Judaism as a religion. But what may reconcile non-Jews to the existence of Judaism does not necessarily help the Jews in solving the problems to which it gives rise. Now that it is in need of intelligent planning and direction, Jews should learn Judaism's essential character so that they might know what to do with it in times of stress. The term civilization is usually applied to the accumulation of knowledge, skills, tools, arts, literatures, laws, religions, and philosophies, which stands between man and external nature, and which serves as the bulwark against the hostility of forces that would otherwise destroy him. If we contemplate that accumulation as it works in the life process, we realize that it does not function as a whole, but in blocks. Each block of that accumulation is a civilization, which is sharply differentiated from every other. Each block or unit of civilization can exist and flourish, even if every other should become extinct. This fact indicates that a civilization is a complete and self-contained entity. Civilization is an abstract term. The actuality is civilizations. For example, the civilizations of Babylonia, of Egypt, of Palestine. Not all elements of a civilization constitute its otherness. Each civilization possesses elements which it shares with other civilizations, and which are transferable in toto to other civilizations. Among these would be included mechanical developments, inventions, the funded discoveries of science. But it would be wrong to assume that these improvements in the mechanics of living constitute a civilization. The elements which give it otherness and individuality are those which produce the human differentia in the individuals that are raised in it. Here we go. The development of the human differentia is due mainly to non-transferable elements like language, literature, arts, religion, and laws. They are non-transferable in the sense that they cannot be adopted by other civilizations without essential changes in their character. By placing Judaism within the category of civilizations, we shall know how to fit it into the framework of the modern social order. That classification should help us identify, in the complex thing called Judaism, all of the elements and characteristics which go to make up its substance and which can be properly appraised in terms of present-day values and desiderata. That's a new one for me, because they can be studied as the reactions of human nature to social environment. 2 more paragraphs. Judaism is but one of a number of unique national civilizations guiding humanity towards its spiritual destiny. It has functioned as a civilization through its career, and it's only in that capacity that it can function in the future. If Judaism is to be preserved amidst the new conditions, said the late Israel Friedlander, if lacking as it does all outward support, it is still to withstand the pressure of the surrounding influence, and must again break the narrow frame of a creed, a belief, and resume its original function as a culture, as the expression of the Jewish spirit and the whole life of the Jews. It will not confine itself to a few metaphysical doctrines, which affect the head and not the heart, and a few official ceremonies which affect neither the head nor the heart, but will encircle the whole life of the Jew and give context and color to its highest functions and activities. A civilization is not a deliberate creation. It's as spontaneous a growth as any living organism. Once it exists, it can be guided and directed, but its existence must be determined by the imperative of a national tradition and the will to live as a nation. Civilization arises not out of planned cooperation, but out of centuries of inevitable living, working, and striving together. Its transmission takes place by the method of suggestion, imitation, and education of the young, sanctioned by public opinion and authority. The operation of these forces is postulated by the existence of the social institutions of the family, school, religious organization, and communal self-government. The process cannot wait until the child reaches the age of choice. Civilizations live by the inherent right to direct the child into their ways. It's only thus that the whole course of human development has been made possible. Let me just make sure. Okay. Let's pause for a second. Let's get a couple reactions. Bev, what do you think? Either Bev.
I don't know. I read it a couple of times, but I'm still kind of not quite understanding in which way our discussion should go.
Yeah, it's
So.
it's complex. It's
Yeah.
dense, right? Clearly, this is a big thinker. Bev, Aaron, how about you? What do you think? You're muted. You're muted.
This would have to be for me. I need the quick notes on the definition of otherness and Judaism and the word civilization. I mean,
Right.
I didn't get much from this.
Okay, so in the actual article, he defines, if you look, he
Yeah.
defines otherness,
I'm trying to take notes too.
defines civilization,
Mm.
right? I mean, it may not be the definition, but it's the definition they're working with. And otherness you can, I think, get from the context. It's all right, good.
Yeah.
John Laszlo, I'm curious to see what your first take is on Kaplan's The Jewish Civilization. Oh, John, try to unmute. Okay, if you keep pushing buttons, if you can figure it out, we'd love to hear what you have to say. All right, Ken Hurd.
Well, yes, it is very dense, and yes, it is written not like we view things today, but still, what I'm getting out of it is that, Judaism itself is much more than what we commonly believe in or practice every day. The ethos of our religion and our culture is being defined much more by what he says we need to be doing to maintain that as more of a that we are more than just that, but we are a civilization.
Yeah, and you're right on it, right? I mean, he's not just making an observation. He's saying that what we have, meaning what we have in 1935 as Jews, okay, whatever we have, is lacking something that he thinks we need, right? To move us forward or to make us what? Relevant, right? To make people care. He's not really mixing his words where he's saying, hey, a couple of heady intellectual things that affect the head but not the heart, or rituals that affect neither the heart or the head. Like, he's not pulling his punches there. Yes, Jerry.
Considering the time that he wrote this, isn't part of the reason he feels it's collapsing, so to speak, is because we had so many immigrants come to this country who weren't really free to observe their religion, came from shtetls. And some of them, when they came to this country, like my grandparents, they didn't join a synagogue until it was time for my father to be bar mitzvahed. And I wonder if that contributes to this whole thing, that when so many Jewish immigrants came here to escape.
You're bringing up a good point. The first question is sort of, what did the Jewish life look like then? If you're looking at 1935, the big waves that have come in within that generation are the Jews from Russia and Romania and Poland, as opposed to the earlier waves of Jews came from, for the most part, Germany and Austria. Now, those earlier waves of Jews, call it right around the turn of the century, those Jews were educated. For the most part, they were upper class. They might come here without English, but they sure knew their German, right? Advanced degrees, usually in things like engineering. Now, who comes in, starting in 1916, 17, but really through the 20s? Those Russian Jews. Now, the term Yid as a derogatory term is a term that the first wave of Jews, those German Jews, gave to the Russian Jews. Those Russian Jews were poor, uneducated, okay? And when they did have education, it was sort of lower level trade education. The JTS, the seminary, was a seminary that was created to create rabbis and synagogues for those Russian Jews, because they weren't accepted by that first wave. It was sort of like, hey, we're not all together on this. So, Jerry, I don't exactly know how it fits in, but I think you are right that second wave of immigration has something to do with, whatever the intellectual German and Austrian Jewish synagogues were offering, or whatever the Jewish life was offering, probably wasn't speaking to the Russian Jewish masses. Okay, Stacy, and then Ellen.
I feel like he's taking a bit of and again, it's 1935, but this like purist, the Jews need to stay in this specific circle where everything is kind of a Jewish living very holistically and in a very purist manner, versus, I mean, even with the immigrants, right? It's like the Jewish civilization and how we evolve as a people is not so much about assimilating, but it's about how do we take our Jewishness and our Judaism rituals, practices, values, and use that to influence how we, bring good to the world. And so it's taking the good parts, but there's also good parts of other civilizations. So it's not like keeping Jewish civilization in a single bubble, I guess is my point.
Hang on to that. I think you're right on the first part, and we're going to see his response in the second part. Ellen.
Yeah, I thought this was a great article, by the way. And it did two things for me. First thing, it first got me thinking about the concept of civilization. I really never thought, you know, even after the first class, we missed the last class, and I'm sorry, but of the Jewish people as a civilization. It was a culture, it was a religion, it was a way of living. But to me, civilization was much more governmentally organized. Anyway, but that's besides the point. I think one of the things that he was saying was quite interesting, and I think it's very relevant today, at least what I read from it, was that Judaism is more than a religion, quote. If all it is reading the Bible and Torah is what he says up front, then we're going to die as a civilization. So what we've got to do is make sure that we have things beyond that. And it's kind of like the social connections thing that we're trying to do at Emanu-El, is get Jewish people who have similar thoughts, similar culture, similar maybe foods, backgrounds, values, to engage with each other when maybe they wouldn't if it was just about reading Torah and reading the Bible.
Yeah, beautiful. And you can actually look at sort of how we at Temple Emanu-El do things, and we're not totally unique in this, right? There's lots of synagogues that do something similar. We say that we're built on 5 pillars. Look at the 5 pillars. One is worship and spirituality. Okay, call that, even though we worship differently than Jews did 300 years ago. You've got lifelong learning, of which this is part of it. You've got social connections, including Chavarah. You've got social justice, right? How do we as Jews go out in the world and do good in the world, apropos Stacy's point, right? And the last one, I always forget one.
Israel and peoplehood.
Israel and peoplehood. Great. All right, Roz, I'm going to call on you first for the next one, okay? Because I do want to get to our questions, and I think that these are, okay. Okay, let's look at this first question. Roz, I'm going to call on you first.
Well,
so
I was going to ask my little experience with the University Synagogue in the Palisades in California, which is a Reconstructionist. Didn't they do away with the word God?
Okay, so the University Synagogue has actually in the last couple of years been eaten up by Wilshire Boulevard Temple, which is the other big Reform synagogue in LA. Reconstructionism in general, meaning the last 2 generations, it's an odd thing. I actually looked at it as a possible way for me to go. So they are very traditional in their worship, okay? But they believe that God is not an entity, but an idea. And so when you're praying to an idea, which works for me in general, but not for me specifically. Like I can't devote my life to God as an idea, as opposed to, a God where I can have a relationship with. So, but Reconstructionists are usually very learned. They're usually very traditional, much more traditional even than the conservative Jews in their approach, but taking away the God idea, the God as an entity. All right, let's go to this first question here, because this is important. They're all important. I don't want to get to them. So, what are some major differences in the world from 1935 compared to the world today that are most relevant to Jews? Most relevant to Jews. Okay, Roz, you're first.
We have the state of Israel now.
Yes. Number 1, right? The recreation of the state of Israel, 1948. Okay, that was a major, major difference. Things are very different now than then for that reason alone. Good. What else? And the impact can really not be measured. What else? Philip, give us a big difference between 1935 and now as it relates to Jewish life.
You know, that sort of relates to the question that I was going to ask a minute ago. I hope it's all right if I go in that direction and come back to this, but I was going to mention before that in 1935, he sort of worried about the dying out. It seemed to me worrying about the dying out of the Jewish civilization. And it's interesting to me that some of the worries that we have today, when we get together with friends and we talk, we worry about what's happening to Jewish civil. Is it going to survive our children?
Comic Convention is happening February 24th to the 26th, and tickets are on sale now.
All right, keep going. Yeah, so you're saying that now when you get together, you and your friends worry about what, Judaism?
Is Jewish civilization going to survive our children, the grandchildren, and so forth into the future? And I found it interesting that in 1935, his writing was worrying about civilization, the survival of. I took that away from something he said about the if you have, the survival of the Jewish civilization, you have to do these otherness things. And so I found it interesting that we worry about it today in 2022, and he's worrying about it in 1935.
Yeah,
so,
and you just
survived.
You just addressed number 2. So good. You're good. All right, Denise, you're up.
Okay, this is Bob pretending to be Denise. Well, a couple of things. One is, I don't know, but I guess that assimilation of Jews is a problem more now than it was then, but I don't know that. But I guess my other observation is that family, not just for Jewish people, but probably for everyone, now that we are more modern, than we were 90 years ago, and spread out, families, in the 1930s, all lived together. Your cousin was next door, your uncle was next door. And so we've lost the cohesiveness of family now compared to the 1930s.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. And not only that, but now and for the last couple of generations, it's not unusual for children to move away, maybe even far away from where their parents are, right? In search of, jobs or love or what have you. And that really did not happen nearly as much 90 years ago, right? You're pretty much going to stay where you were born.
In fact, can you hear me now?
Yes, John. Good.
The fact that Jews are more accepted into professions and other jobs is a major difference compared to 1935. And so the fact that you're more accepted means it's easier to take on the attributes of those people with whom you are working, and to lose that sense of Jewish identity that was necessary if you were not being accepted.
Yeah. So in other words, yes, we are way more accepted into our, in the popular or Gentile society than we were 90 years ago, but that has an inverse effect on assimilation or even sort of, being lost to Judaism, right? That when there are,
yes,
when Jews have to go start their own law firms or country clubs, or, the rates of intermarriage are so low, right? It's much easier to be part of a Jewish community, as opposed to, hey, they love us. We can intermarry. We can marry into their families, and we can go to their law firms and anybody's country club. And now all of a sudden, there are new, different pressures. A couple more big points here, because we're going to move on to the next one. Just looking at Kaplan, what he started. So 1935, Jewish summer camp like we know it, not around, right? JCCs, not around. Egalitarian services, nascent. Bat mitzvahs, not around. That type of thing. Your synagogue was to go to for services. Your services were for the most part one way. They were going to be in Hebrew, and you were going to shekel for the most part, although the reform movement was strong by 1935. So those were your choices, right? Sort of high church reform Judaism, or very traditional in the language you probably weren't speaking. Now, we answered number 2, or Philip began to answer number 2, and he talks about Jewish life as in danger of collapse. And the problem is how to make it habitable. And in order to make it habitable, he says we need to expand beyond what Ellen was saying. Text study, probably esoteric text study, and prayer, esoteric prayer. Okay, now, let's look at this idea of otherness. And Bev Aaron, I'm looking at you on this one. In paragraph number 2, and I'll share it again in a second, Kaplan proposes alternative ways outside of worship that the Jew can save the Jewish otherness. Almost 90 years later, I want to know, was his formula correct? What, if anything, is missing or superfluous based on where we are today? So we're going to look at paragraph 2, what he says about saving Jewish otherness. He's giving a formula. I want us to evaluate. Was he right? Wasn't he right? What else do we need? What did he say that's superfluous? This is paragraph 2, and I am going to find that. Okay, hang on. All right, there's one. Here it is. So take a look. You can read it over. Take a look at what he defines as the way to expand on your otherness, the Jewish otherness. Put more specifically, this means that apart from the life which as a citizen the Jew shares with the non-Jews, his life should consist of certain social relationships to maintain, cultural interests to foster, activities to engage in, organizations to belong to, amenities to conform to, moral and social standards to live up to as a Jew. All this constitutes the element of otherness. And he goes on. It includes a nexus of history, literature, language, social organization, folk sanctions, standards of conduct, social and spiritual ideals, aesthetic values, which in their totality form a civilization. So the question is, did he get it right? 90 years later, did he get it right? How right? Ellen, what do you think? I think you're muted.
Yeah, this really spoke to me. I mean, I truly believe that he did. I mean, he was brilliant to see beyond what religion in the shtetl, so to speak, had been, that it was more of a full culture and engagement in lots of different areas. The otherness beyond just the book.
Yeah. What's he missing?
I mean, I can imagine, you know, what would Judaism be like today if we didn't have things like JCCs and summer camps and, you know, Jewish activity, social and cultural activity, you know, the Jewish Film Festival, or, you know, that just happened, things like that. If it was just going every Saturday to shul and reading the text, not that that should be left out,
right,
but we'd be so different if the other things hadn't taken place.
Good. All right, Terry,
Well-
let's hear from Terry.
The Jewish otherness is so important. We came from Arkansas, which does not have a big Jewish population. And because of that, so many of all the small town Jewish synagogues have closed. All the kids have left to go to the big cities where there is otherness, where there is a JCC, and there's film festivals and all the things that you didn't get in a state that when we grew up had 2 rabbis in the whole state, or when we left had 2 rabbis in the whole state. And when we were young, they had a bunch of rabbis because every little town had a rabbi. But all the kids, when they went to college and got married, moved to bigger cities.
Okay. Good. All right, Bev.
Well, I mean, I was born in 1941 and always my family belonged to an Orthodox synagogue. Of course, it was the only synagogue in Annapolis, Maryland. But I feel that my synagogue did make sure that they did all of these things that he is talking about, because it was the essence of our life. You know, that's where we went to congregate. That's where I went with my friends. That's where I had the activities. That's where I went to Sunday school. That's where I went to Hebrew school.
So it sounds like the synagogue took on
Yeah,
social
very,
center
very
as
much so.
religious center. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Eileen or Philip, I'm not sure who's got the hand raised.
Well, I think I agree with others who've spoken. Ellen, that first paragraph is brilliant, especially almost 100 years ago. But the last paragraph I felt was very important also, because it really talked about what we have to do for the younger generation, the education, nurturing them from a young age. It's not just a king or a pharaoh, that he didn't include it in that paragraph number 2, but the last paragraph really talked about another step we must do, which is for children.
Great. Now, right along those lines, I find this very interesting here. So I'm on number 4. Okay, looking at paragraph 5, look at question number 4. So the quote is, Jews should learn Judaism's essential character so that they might know what to do with it in times of stress. So the question is, 90 years later, after Kaplan's published The Jewish Civilization, do you think that we have narrowed in on Judaism's essential character?
Mm-mm.
What do you think? And beyond that,
Show us paragraph 5 again, please.
paragraph 5 coming up. There it is. Take a look. So now, how do we know? I mean, look, I don't want to get into a deep conversation of how do we know. Oftentimes, by approaching things from a different angle or perspective, we know it better, right? Just sort of in general terms. You look at things in one way, you're going to see it one way, but if you look at something in lots of different ways, and I would suggest that post-Kaplan and in the last 90 years, that even if we can't define or know the Jewish essence, in a way that it's easy to articulate, because we're looking at it from so many different ways now compared to 90 years ago, I think we've got a better understanding of what it is. Even if the best we can say is, Judaism, the essence of Judaism is a certain something, a certain je ne sais quoi, right? Well, how do we know? Because we have summer camps, and we have Chavarot, and we have rituals, and we have reformations, multiple reformations. What's Reform Judaism? It's a reformation on Judaism. And it's happened not just once, but a couple times. All right, I would love to go deeper into that one, but I want to go to the next question. Okay, this is interesting, this number 5, because it directly relates to our first conversation in this class, where we're talking about, just to jog your memory, is Judaism a people, a religion, a culture? And the gist of what you all said was, well, we are those things, but not just those things. And we're not a people, we're sort of a conglomeration of different types of people that altogether we'll call a people. And we're not a culture, we're different cultures that sort of amalgamate together, and we call it Jewish culture. And by the way, even religion, right? We're not a religion. The way that we express our religious instinct as Reformed Jews, let's say, is very, very different than how our ultra-Orthodox, cousins do it. Very, very different. If we're going to be honest about it, there are similarities, but they are so different that in my mind, they are close to being other religions, at least in practice. So now I want us to look at, from just remind you about this, paragraph 6. Which I think is this one here. I knew I should have numbered these. Okay. Take a look at what Kaplan says here. And then I think it's this next one too. Maybe it's the one before. Yes, this is it. Sorry, this is the paragraph. And for him, he's saying that the term civilization is a better catch-all, even if there are variations within what we would call culture and peoples and religious expressions. All right, let's get to this last question.
Rabbi, but isn't he also, it's almost a bit of a call to action of, civilization and the perpetuity of it is not something that we just can sit idly by. It kind of reminds me of this active role that we all play in passing it, sharing it amongst each other.
I would agree with you. I mean, I think that at least these pages do seem to be a call to action, right? And what's the call to action? Part of it is we have to create, and we've got to think outside the box and do what this group said, is a prime mark of the Jewish civilization, which is adapt.
Yeah, we don't stand still. I mean, there's been so many moments since 1935, State of Israel, there's so many things that have strengthened, challenged, tugged on the resilience of the Jewish civilization and people. And it requires action and engagement and involvement and commitment.
You're right. And by the way, you mentioned as you're talking something that we did not bring up in the first question in terms of what's the difference between 1935 and now. That's the Holocaust. I can't believe we didn't pull that one in. All right, let's look at this last question. This is the culmination. This is the big culmination of the mini mester. Okay. Judaism must again resume its original function as the expression of the Jewish spirit and the whole life of the Jews, to encircle the whole life of the Jew and give content and color to its highest function and activities. That's the quote. So, if this is the goal that Kaplan lays out in 1935, how is Judaism doing in 2023? And I'll one-up you. In the next 50 years, what would Judaism need to do in order to resume its original function as the expression of the Jewish spirit and the whole life of Jews? How are we doing? And what are next steps? What else would we need to do to adapt in the next 50 years to make Jewish civilization that much more vibrant and vibrant and potent? What will we need to do so that, Philip, when you and your friends are sitting around saying, will Judaism survive through our kids and our grandkids and the future generations, that we get the unequivocal, resounding yes?
Everything that you're doing at Temple Emanu-El, and I say that with sincerity, I think you're encouraging the Chavarah, the education, the welcoming environment, you know, activities that is helping to draw us all together. And to me, that's what we need to survive into the future.
Okay, I appreciate
And I
it.
think
I would just change it to we. I would change it to we. It's not me.
Yeah.
We do.
I think with the youth too, so that they, with the camp, I think camp experience, and certainly Israel experience is paramount. And I see, not Emanu-El now is having, even its trip for the teens. My grandkids have been as many times as I've been, and they're a whole lot younger. So I think that's what gave them the feeling toward their Judaism, not just Israel, but their Judaism as they experience it here. I think certainly the wave of anti-Semitism is as bad as it's been, and as much as those flyers and yay or ye or however he pronounces his name have done the purpose, has kind of backfired in our favor, in that it's brought up the discussion on people who are saying, I can't even believe that. I mean, what kind of, how could he be saying these things? And I think that's been good for us.
Okay, so how are we doing? Good, I like these. How are we doing, and what do we need to do, going forward to propagate the Jewish civilization in this emerging world? Jerry, and then Eileen.
I think one of the things he talks about turning to religion to Judaism in stress.
Yes.
And the perfect example on how we have done that at our temple is the fact of the recent anti-Semitic flyers. And what is the reaction? The reaction is to have this community event discussion on Sunday at Temple Emanu-El, where it's not just Jews, but it's people of all faiths are invited to come. And that's a part of education. And I think educating people to what we are, especially in times of stress, is critical to our future.
Yeah, beautiful. I would just add one point to that, to Kaplan's point that you bring up, Jerry, and that, he says, you've got to keep you've got to essentially progress the civilization, or the idea of civilization, so it's there in times of stress. For me, I think one of the key components of having the Jewish civilization move forward is that Jews have to feel that Judaism, in this big sense, is there for them, not just when things are tough, but it helps bring out the joys and the good in life too, right? And that Judaism is not just a series of reactions when life is hard. And I'm not saying that's not important, of course it is, but also how can Judaism inform the highlights of my life and deepen my relationships with other people in my life. And it starts with kids, but not just kids. How about being fun? Can Judaism be fun? Can being a Jew be fun? Can it be something that we're proud of? right? Can it be something that we want to share with others? Can we be citizens of the world, but have our particular way of being a citizen of the world? Our particular things that we offer. Eileen.
I just have a narrow wish and desire, because I think the things he brought up almost 100 years ago, getting JCCs, egalitarianism, he brought up so many things with such foresight. It's amazing. Our synagogue and many synagogues are doing a great job. A group I really worry about, because that's our future. This is after the kids are in camps and maybe Jewish day schools and, you know, different associations, the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings. They're on a path of self-stress, get careers, get their education, start a family, but a lot of them just kind of don't do anything Jewish anymore. I think whether it's intermarriage or maybe it has nothing to do with that, how do we really address the 20-somethings and 30-somethings? Because many of us in this group, you know, are beyond that. And that's a group I worry about, because they will hit the 40s, 50s, 60s, and they have to be the strong ones then.
Yeah. So I don't have a clear answer to that, other than just a point. I feel like throughout at least the history of sort of the modern synagogue, every generation stresses about bringing the 20s and 30s into their synagogue for all the reasons that you're talking about, either sort of a pushing back against tradition or focusing on career, or there's lots of competing activities out there. And that generally, at least when families start, generally, that's where often those Jews, especially if they were given a good base when they were younger, will return to, if not the synagogue, to the Jewish community one way or another. That's the hope.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eileen, it's Denise. Just to reflect a little bit about what you were just saying, the one thing that when I even look at our own children who are in that category that you're talking about, the connection, they may not have the connection with the synagogue, but what the connection is with their Jewish friends. And actually a lot of their friends are Jewish, raising their children Jewish, you know, have preschool at the JCC for their, you know, the children that they're having, doing sports together, celebrating some of the holidays together, you know, whether it be Hanukkah, things like that. So that's what gives me some hope, because I have some of the same thoughts and feelings that you were expressing about that age range. You know, you can do so much as a parent, and then they're adults. I mean, you know, it's their life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and we're past 8. So I hope that you got something out of the mini-mester. And I certainly have enjoyed researching it and teaching it in the conversation. I think the next mini-mester course is Rabbi Max teaching, and I think it is
Jews in the Christian Bible.
Jews in the Christian Bible, yeah. Okay, it was something like that, which should be really interesting as well. All right. Well,
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see
Happy
you.
Purim to everybody.
Yeah, early Purim. We're almost there.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Rabbi.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.